These amazing animal survival stories hold the key to deciphering the great changes that the Earth once underwent. Mount Gongga is the highest peak in Sichuan and is known as the King of Mountains in Sichuan. The west of Sichuan is connected to the Qinghai Tibet Plateau. A vast group of mountain ranges here, known as the Hengduan Mountains, has a total area of 364,000 square kilometers. About 50 million years ago, the Qinghai Tibet Plateau began to rise. The tectonic plates squeezed each other, twisting the earth, forming faults and fold mountains. These huge mountain ranges were formed through a process known as orogeny. Orogeny drastically changed the face of the earth and the altitude of the young Hengduan Mountains. On the eastern face of Mount Gongga, the horizontal distance between the bed of the river valley and the summit is less than 30 kilometers, but the difference in altitude is 6,500 meters. The valley is like a lively concert hall filled with songbirds. Their singing and dancing never seems to end. In contrast, pheasants are much quieter. They don't fly well and mustn't give away their positions easily. The silver pheasant mainly inhabits evergreen broadleaf forests and bamboo forests below 2,000 meters in altitude. They are quiet and graceful. The male's shiny feathers and bright red cheeks show that they are in heat. The Lady Amherst pheasant lives at around 3,000 meters above sea level. Low bushes are an ideal place to forage for food. During the breeding season, males are very aggressive and only allow females to enter their territory. Even the unthreatening squirrel is expelled from his orbit. To avoid unwanted competition, different species of pheasants often live at different elevations and habitats in the mountains. Alpine meadows, scrubs, and bare rock areas at altitudes of above 3,200 meters are the domain of the Chinese monal, a bird endemic to China. The Chinese monal uses its powerful hook-shaped bill to feed on plant roots and stems. The locals believe that it likes to eat a kind of lily known as the fritillaria, so they also call it the fritillaria bird. In spring, the male birds dance to win the female's affection. Various organisms try to adapt to the changes, the terrain, the weather, and the surrounding habitat. Undulating terrain can result in large environmental changes in a small space. This makes the Hengduan Mountains a natural laboratory for studying biodiversity patterns. The long winter in the alpine regions has ended. Newborn fawns follow their mother closely, searching for food among the exposed rocks. This buck has just sprouted new furry antlers. In the coming days, he will lead the herd on a long journey along the river out of the mountain valley. The herd is heading to an alpine meadow more than 100 kilometers away, at 4,500 meters above sea level. White-lipped deer carry out this migration every year. The mountains here have witnessed such migrations for tens of millions of years. In 2018, a piece of amber from 100 million years ago caught the attention of scientists. They found pollen from cycads near this ancient beetle. The city of Panjiwa is situated on the southern edge of the Hengduan Mountains. A rare natural cycad forest still exists on its slope at an altitude of 2,000 meters. Cycads are the oldest surviving seed plants on Earth. The Panjiwa sago palm is a dioecious cycad species, which means it has to find a way to deliver its pollen to produce seeds. Their flowers are full of starch that attracts insects and other small animals looking for food. These small creatures carry the pollen from the male to the female plants. 200 million years ago, cycads covered most of the world, dominating the Earth along with the dinosaurs. They have always preferred warm environments and feared the cold. So how did they survive the long ice age? Hengduan Mountain is the largest ancient ice cap in the Hengduan Mountains. Over millions of years, glaciers and rocks on the mountain collided countless times, forming thousands of large and small lakes. The Hengduan Mountains went through several ice ages in the Quaternary period, but its mid-latitude location means that only scattered glaciers can form here, and that it has almost never been covered by large-scale ice caps. Almost all the mountain ranges of the Hengduan Mountains run from north to south. The valleys provide migration routes for animals, and also depth for plants to cope with the change in climate. When the Ice Age came, it was impossible for creatures to survive in places covered by glaciers. The plants retreated along the corridor to warmer areas in the south. After the glaciers retreated, they could expand northward to recover lost ground. During the long ice ages, all kinds of creatures moved back and forth along the mountain ranges, running north to south. Successive tests from nature wiped out the vast majority of species. But a few of them, like cycads, survived in the valleys of the Hengduan Mountains. Located in the midsection of the Sha-Lu-Li Mountains, Pa Mu Ling Temple is surrounded by intact primary forest and grassland. The locals here have a harmonious relationship with the wildlife. The buff-throated partridges lay claim to their territory with a high, piercing call. Spring has just begun. The grass seeds haven't sprouted, but the grass stems in the forest have almost been eaten up. Now they need to expand their territory and find more abundant food sources to prepare for the upcoming breeding season. Territorial fights between clans can break out at any time. These battles take place constantly every spring. The buff-throated partridge's favorite living area is the alpine rhododendron forest at the edge of the fir forest, which is not yet in bloom. The alpine rhododendrons can cling to the poor soil on the mountain's hard granite surface and grow into forests. Their roots are strong enough to penetrate deep into cracks in the rocks. At 4,000 meters above sea level, powerful denudation from the glaciers has removed most of the fragile soil layers surrounding the mountain. The exposed roots and stems have formed natural flower pots, gathering dead branches and fallen leaves to collect soil and water. At this time of the year, the whole valley is waiting for the first downpour of spring. In early summer, the monsoon from the sea intensifies. Another natural force that shapes the diversity of the Hengduan Mountains appears. The valley brings together forces from the tropics, and the water vapor climbs up the slopes, condensing when it gets cold. Finally, under the influence of gravity, a magnificent show takes place. A blooming rhododendron flower can only bear one fruit, while a rhododendron tree can produce thousands of seeds each year. Due to its incredible reproductive capacity, new species of rhododendron keep emerging at different altitudes. In the moist fir forests, at altitudes of 2,600 to 3,000 meters, these rhododendrons climb up tall fir trees. They spread their roots over the moss just to get more sunlight and water. The blooming flowers have attracted a colony of Tibetan macaques in Mount Gongga. In early spring, food is scarce, and newborn members of the colony still need their mother's milk. Meanwhile, some of the older babies have begun foraging for food on their own. After a long winter, these blooming plants serve as a timely energy supplement. After going out of the mountains, the alpine rhododendrons continue to move upwards. In the alpine meadows at 4,000 meters above sea level, spring comes late. To adapt to the cold and rainless environment, this rhododendron species keeps lowering its height and shrinking its foliage. This allows it to bloom freely in the alpine meadows, where the tall trees cannot reach. In Sichuan, more than 200 species of rhododendron have become an important part of the mountains and forests ecosystem. Early summer is the busiest time of year for herders. Early in the morning, they have to drive yaks to the pastures high up in the Hengduan Massif.
赶牛的技巧就是要快，不快的话，前面的牛往那边跑，然后后面的牛那边跑，然后就根本就跟不上。
Countless ancestors once walked among the vast Hengduan Mountains and then scattered in the mountains and valleys. They developed into various ethnic groups, forming a kaleidoscope of history and culture. Mountains, valleys, rivers, monsoons, geological changes, and geographical barriers were unable to hinder life. Instead, they nurtured a diversity of species and rich biotopes. They are all like streams in the mountains, eventually converging into a magnificent river of life.